Hello, I've been running, and the name Richard Ragoobarsingh popped into my head. Who is Richard Ragoobarsingh?
I'm an actor, director. I co-produce in RSRR Productions. I'm a playwright, but I've also done work in the television space. I've also actually converted some of my scripts into screenplays. I like writing. I've always loved writing, which intersects with loving reading, especially as a teenager and as a child. As a child and as a teenager, I was an avaricious reader. So I have always loved literature. And I suppose that led me to my field in the creative arena, specifically in theater. I think I'm best known for theater. I've been in theater for, over 35 years, over 35 years. You could say 40 years. Wow. 40 years in the field of, performing and doing theater on stages across Trinidad and Tobago and up the Caribbean. I've been up the Caribbean, sitting islands doing stuff. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey in terms of the creative sphere and what you do in the creative sphere.
That's wonderful. And Richard, is that how you generate income?
Well, creatives generating income. I mean, as a profession, I'm a lawyer. And I suppose I could go back in time to when I was a little boy and I was in love with movies. And my mother would always tell me, my mother was a movie fanatic herself. I suppose it passed genetically somehow, because she used to collect these cards with all of these famous actors of her era. But they used to have these little cards, and she used to treasure these cards of all of these actors that she collected. And she named me Richard after Richard Chamberlain. And if you don't know who Richard Chamberlain is, look him up. And so she named me Richard after him, despite whatever protestations my father may have had. So I suppose so, there's a kind of way how you're named kind of infuses who you become in a kind of way. And I suppose I always wanted to be an actor as a boy growing up, and my mother would say, "Don't be a fool or don't be a damn fool." In Trinidad, there is no space for actors. Get your profession first and then do whatever the hell you want. That was her advice to me, I remember as a young boy. And
Uh,
and so I guess I got the profession and I got and but I still pursued the acting. And I remember Auntie Beryl McBurney. She was already a good friend of the family. And I remember and one of the first plays I did was a play called The Stranger, and we actually did it in what was called Beryl's Folk House, which was her house on that street. What street is that? Is that Panka Street? I can't remember what street it is, where her house was. They have since torn it down,
yeah.
and we did the play there. And I remember Auntie Beryl coming after and saying, "Richard, you need to pursue this. You need to do this as your life's journey." She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm actually training to be an attorney." And she said, "Oh my God, we have lost you. We've lost you. That's it." I always remember her saying that. And and sometimes you wonder, like, if I had just chucked the law profession aside and only concentrated entirely on the creative sphere, how different would it be to what I did? Because I kind of split it. I devoted part of my life to my profession, and the other part of my life was devoted to the creative field. But in a Trinidad and Tobago context, and the pressure of your parents, that's just how it was done. Oftentimes, I remember when I did stand up. I did stand up. I experimented with stand up comedy for a while, and we had a club called Richard and Friends, which was on Victoria Avenue. And that's where Donna Haddad and Rachel Price, Larry Joseph, all of us came together. Clifford Lehrman was part of it too, Myron Ali, God rest their souls. And when we were doing it, there was a piece that I did, and I said, but so many times as young people, we have these creative tendencies. We want to do certain things. You could want to be a pianist, you could want to be a dancer, and the the parent reality in Trinidad and Tobago slaps you back into reality, and all of a sudden you're a teller in Republic Bank, and and the the notion of being a classical pianist is out the window, or being this expert ballerina. you have given up to being, a manager at Scotia. I'm just saying, I'm using banks as a reference, but any job, now you're in the public service, and that dream is a distant dream that you're never going to go back to. And so many times I think creative people have that first hurdle in their lives to jump, the parental hurdle, because not all parents are embracing of creative roots in terms of your profession. I think a lot of that has changed, and I think there are much more parents now who are willing that their children are willing to go into the creative endeavor, whatever it is. Whatever it is, it could be kaiso, it could be soca, it could be Trinidad music, or it could be whatever, zest music, it could be whatever, or dancers, actors. I think you have now a parent that is, well, some parents that are more willing to embrace that. I suppose there's some that will still be very traditional and say, no way, Jose. It's just too much stress and too much, um, too much adversity that your life is going to be as a creative.
Yes. And that's a very interesting statement because a lot of our creative people end up unemployed and therefore their living, their standard of living is difficult. But let's reflect on Richie Ragoobarsingh. What is the thing you're proud of?
I think I'm proud of the fact that despite having two professions juggling for my time, and 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 of course the creative has always been important and heartfelt, I've still managed to carve my own identity as a creative and achieve certain, landmarks in that field. And I always tell people, young people, because a lot of young people interview me for theater arts programs and stuff like that. So I do a lot of interviews. And I always tell them, anybody, because they ask a variety of questions. But one of the questions sometimes they will ask is, what would you tell young people who want to get into the creative field? And I will always tell them, once you have the passion for it, if you don't have the passion and really love for whatever you are going to do in the arts, forget it. Because Trinidad can be a harsh and difficult space in terms of navigating your creative endeavors. I'm not saying that don't do it, because I think in a kind of way it's similar for creatives across the planet. It's just that Trinidad and Tobago is a smaller space. And there are more rigid things in terms of how the society sees you. And so you have several hurdles to cross in terms of getting to wherever you want to go as a creative. And I think that as a young person, if you don't have that passion, because it's that passion that is going to drive you and make you take the next step when the world is telling you you are not worthy, what are you doing? You're not fulfilling your space on this planet. You're not fulfilling your space. You're endeavoring to accomplish something. There are lots of signals you can get from this space that tells you you're not good enough. What you're doing, that's nonsense. You get a lot of those kind of messages from different people. And you have to have that innate passion that overrides that. And if you don't start off with the foundation of that passion, you're going to hit a brick wall. So I always tell them, you have to have that. And once you have that, you will keep going, because that's what creatives do. The creative sector is not a very profitable sector. It's not. Many times we do plays, we don't earn a cent. We don't earn any money at all. You just break even. Sometimes you lose. You lose money. And people say, well, you've been doing it for so long, but yeah, because passion. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so it's not about income generation, because oftentimes, you
Well,
break
income
even on
generation
it.
would be wonderful, but you're in a space where you fight up. And I mean, we are, I guess, more successful than most in the sense of we do consistent work. But a lot of times, sometimes it's you barely pay your bills. And of course you look to the corporate sector for sponsorship. And I must admit, we do have some really good corporate partners. I can't say we don't, we do. But there are a lot of companies and corporate entities across Trinidad and Tobago that don't understand the value I'm speaking specifically about theater. Let everybody else fight for their space. But I'm just saying that I'm speaking specifically about theater. They don't understand it because they're inhabited by people at the helm who don't have an appreciation for it, who've never come to a play, or may go to a play in the West End or on Broadway, but don't see value to what Trinidadians and Tobagonians do on stage here, simply because they're ignorant. They don't realize how good it is. You know, I'm not meaning to boast. I'm not just even talking about the productions I'm involved in. I'm talking about generally there is a standard of theater by several companies in Trinidad and Tobago that can hold its own, and I don't think people are aware of that. So that when every time you do a play, there are new people that come to the play for the first time who have never come to theater. You would think that, but the majority of Trinidadians and Tobagonians have never come to a live play. Is that incredible?
It is absolutely incredible that we do not go to theater. We do not see theater as part of our entertainment. We see
Yeah,
theater as a thing over there. But
yeah.
if you could influence some of our infrastructure, what could you do?
I remember years ago when Patrick Manning was in power, and Hazel Manning, I think, was in charge of community centers and stuff like that. And I had suggested to her, I was in a meeting with her, I can't remember how I got into that meeting. And I was in a meeting with her, and I was suggesting to her informally that, community centers should be theatrical spaces or performance spaces too. Now, I know they have a rudimentary sort of stage. They have a stage and stuff, but it's not outfitted with proper lighting and sound and stadium seating. And you need small theaters at the main population centers across the country. And when I say small, 250, 300, and they'd be utilized. Not only that, you're opening up employment because you're going to have to hire stage managers, you're going to have to hire technical people. So Princestown should have a theater, Shagwana should, Arima should. Arima doesn't have one, even though Raymond Chukong and myself are from Arima. To this day, Arima doesn't have a theater. We have to use, where do we use? We use Cipriani College. If you're in East at all, the closest functional theater is Cipriani College. Chaguanas and Central Trinidad, not much fully functional theaters there. You probably have to use Cipriani, or you head down south where you have two. You have Sapa and you have Naparima Bowl. Forest Bay, you have Queen's Hall, you have Little Carib, you have Napa, you have Central Bank Auditorium. Those are the main theaters we circle. And of course, in Tobago, you have, what's the name of this space in Tobago? Why is it not coming to me right now? Which we have gone to Tobago. We have gone to Tobago a couple of times and we've done plays there. But it's like a massive space that you have to kind of tailor to suit your needs. And so if you have these small theaters, these small performance spaces across the country in the main towns, it means much more will happen that can link to that whole legacy and historical performance space of Best Village and community theater, which started from, since 1962. You could have those pieces that also becomes teaching spaces where commercial theater can get involved and say, okay, this is how you do the craft of acting. This is what you do, So you will have much more energy in seeing the sector as an income generator for all of these people who now don't have to settle for jobs elsewhere when they wanted to go into the creative field. In addition to which, it will start to yield more and more in terms of the export sector, in being able to export Trinidadian and Tobagonian works across the planet. So you
what
have
what I'm hearing you say is that we really have the potential for 14 spaces because we have 14 boroughs.
Yeah.
So if we can have a theater in each space, and this is a theater that's not extremely large, but one that could accommodate maybe 200, 250 people, then we would be providing an opportunity for income generation in the creative sector.
And it also widens it in terms of the focus in which the general population has for the performing arts. Now, don't get me wrong, from when I started off in theater an odd 30, 40 years ago to where we are now, there are much more people that come to theater. There are much more people that know theater is on. I think everybody knows theater is on. is whether they're going to take the footstep into the actual theater itself. Some people are intimidated because some see theater as elitist. In their minds, they think, oh my God, I am not worthy to be there. How do I dress? What do I do? Those fundamental little simple things, they get intimidated by, which of course really doesn't matter. People come in jeans and a nice shirt or whatever, and they come to the theater. But people have this misconception, I guess, in terms of the theater. Now they'll say, "Oh, go ahead, it's good. I always want to come, but you know, I don't have the time." Yeah, but you have the time to be winding down and soak a brainwash though. But oh yeah, wine down low. Yeah, hand me a beer. Yeah, wine. Yeah, we good with that. That's all encompassing. You don't have
Yes,
to study how you're dressing for that. Or you know how to dress for
you
that.
know how to dress for
You
that.
know how to dress for that. You know, stink and dirty. Yeah, you know how
Yes.
to dress. But I'm just saying that the more small theaters you have means there is a surge of all of these younger people going into the performing arts as a career option. In addition to which, even if it wasn't, even it isn't their full-time career, the opportunity to perform and see more performers coming forth um, starts to materialize, and it opens up the rest of the society to acknowledging even more and more actors are coming. Because as I was saying before, Denise, when we started off, when you said, "Oh, I'm an actor," people say, "Oh, you're doing that as a hobby."
Yes.
Um, Now, of course, they recognize it is a profession, that Trinidad and Tobago does have actors and actresses. They recognize that we do have directors, we do have set designers and things like that, because it has opened up much more over the period of time that I've been involved in it. Over the years, you can have seen that it grows, and what's really something that's very positive is that a lot of times when we do shows in theaters, you see more and more, you see quite a lot of young people coming out too. So it's not just, sometimes people might think, oh, it's only older people that come to theater. No, absolutely not. You have lots of young couples coming, lots of groups of young people coming to the theater. And so it is indicative that it's growing and it's growing and it's growing in a very healthy way that will leave a long-lasting generation of theater goers. So it's all of that interconnect, and the Trinidad and Tobago brand, whatever that is, because I'm not so sure anybody knows what the Trinidad and Tobago brand is, because it's so eclectic. But whatever that Trinidad and Tobago brand is, that comes out of the stories that we have to tell, and we are good storytellers naturally. Um, those stories are what gives you the kind of soft diplomacy across the planet. It also can intersect with the Ministry of Tourism in terms of, if okay, there are 3 plays going out and we are financing these 3 plays, so they're going like for America Dance, which we are doing the 25th year celebration. You say, okay, we're doing America Dance in 5 cities across the United States, and we are going to finance it. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
And you do those 5 cities in the United States with America Dance. When people enter the theater, they're not only seeing about America Dance, they're also celebrating Trinidad and Tobago and the tourism product that is Trinidad and Tobago. So you build export potential and income earning for the country in a kind of circle back to Trinidad and Tobago in terms of whatever the creative product is that is going out to the rest of the planet.
Well, Trinidad has done that for a very short time. It wasn't theater, but it was performers, and they've been sponsored by the Tourism Development Company, and they've been in various places in New York, various places in the UK, various places in Europe. But we've discontinued that. And to me, what we need to work through is, in this period of the need for diversification, is the creative sector an opportunity for our diversification? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, it incorporates the one resource that you definitively have that is not going to run out, which is the human resource, and it is, I mean, a multi-billion-dollar industry across the planet. And you have not only, I mean, I can kind of concentrate on theater, but you have film, and you have film making certain inroads, and you have a lot of people getting involved in the film sector. I mean, I'm involved in it on a certain level, and I mean, I would have done Mixed Up, which was a five-part sitcom, the first sitcom done, and it was very well received. And that was a very competitive process to get that, but it was all part of building capacity in terms of the film industry in Trinidad and Tobago. I must say, I was a little disappointed when the Film Commission was subsumed under the trade promotion agency that they now have. I felt that was a bad decision, in my opinion. I think film commissions, particularly, need to be very robust, independent authorities that know what their mandate is and go after it. And when you put layers of bureaucracy, it just gives more red tape that you have to go through, more people to approve X, Y, or Z, more egos to traverse before you get stuff done. You know what I'm talking about in Trinidad and Tobago, Denise. Don't pretend you don't. So you have to maneuver through these things. So when I saw them doing this straight promotion agency, I was like, oh God, no, another board. Because it's another board that is going to figure, okay, I am the gods above and I'm going to make these decisions because everybody feels they know. It has been my experience.
That's a valid experience where we have lots of boards, we have lots of organizations, but the implementation is where we seem to be lacking or we're frozen on implementation. So
Absolutely.
let's talk a little about education and the creative sector. Do you think that our education system supports the creative sector?
I am hopeful. Let me start there because I think more is happening now than previously. And that goes back to the fact where I said a lot of young people often interview me concerning, and not only me, I mean other actors and actresses concerning different aspects as part of their SBA, their theater program, their theater studies. They have to do that. They have to interview an actor or a performer or whatever. So I see a lot of that. So obviously there's a lot happening in that. I've gone to some of the graduating pieces and stuff at the UTT at Napa. I've seen young people do different things. Some are writing, some are acting, some are performing, some are doing music and stuff like that. So I've gone to some of those sessions. Very interesting, very high standard, and I felt very enthused. Anytime I go to Napa, I know Michael Cherry is one of the tutors there and stuff like that. So he often invites, and we go across and we watch necessary arts, not in the formal sector like UTT, but they do their own thing where parents and adults come to where parents and their children, and also you have adults doing classes purely in acting and movement and stuff like that. And at the end of the cycle, Penelope Spencer has a show where she showcases talent, and you see some really good talent coming out of it. And sometimes that talent ends up on stages in terms of theater being done across Trinidad and Tobago. So you see a lot of talent coming forward. So there are different. You have the very formal academic training because you also have the creative arts in UE, and you have the UTT, and then you have in the school system more theater arts taking place. So it's much more a sophisticated place in terms of the appreciation of the arts from an academic point of view than it used to be.
Yeah.
Is it where it needs to be? I suppose we'll get there. But certainly it's happening in different areas.
So as we come to an end of While Running, tell me, what are the messages you would like our audience to keep?
That creative people have a space. And there's so many creative people I know from Trinidad and Tobago who have migrated and are doing excellent work, whether it be in England and some of them in other European cities, singers and actors and stuff, and also, of course, those in the United States. And I don't want to say we've lost them, but a lot of the creatives in Trinidad and Tobago sometimes can feel battered by the obstacles we face in the corporate sector, but the battering by even people in your peer groups that say, oh, what are you doing that for? Basically, those kinds of words. Rather than that, support and nurture our performers. Because where this can go is, I mean, even I may not see the vision of where it can go, but it's an untapped resource for the country in terms of where the creative sector can take Trinidad and Tobago. It's an untapped resource. And I know for a lot of people, creative is just soca and pan, and that's it. No, there are other sectors in the creative industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And as a whole, I think there is a lot of income generation and potential that is yet to be tapped. And all it takes is a certain amount of concentration and finance by the state to make it happen. Like what South Korea did. And look at that now. So many Trinidadians watching so many South Korean movies on Netflix. That didn't just happen by magic. It was deliberate policy, engagement with the creative sector, putting money behind the creative sector to achieve what South Korea has achieved, what Australia has achieved, and why in the English-speaking Caribbean we can't make our mark. Our governments just need to step up.
And thank you very much. Richard Ragoobarsingh, our governments just need to step up. All the best.
All right. Thanks a lot, Didi.